Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. This video is going to be a where to start and favourites of the Frost books by R.D.Wingfield. Now this is a 6-book series. The first book was published in 1984 and the last book was published in 2008. R.D.Wingfield sadly passed away in 2007. And there is of course the very famous TV show called A Touch of Frost, which is the name of the second book, and it stars the wonderful David Jason. The series started in 1992 and finished in 2010. And R.D. Wingfield, although he, admired David Jason and everything, he just said David Jason's Frost just isn't his Frost. And the reason why the TV show ended is because David Jason just thought he is too old. It's not realistic anymore to be as old as he was playing a detective inspector doing all the running around. Realistically, he would be retired by now, so that's why the show ended. Now, there is also a prequel series. Now, the prequel series dates the books back to the early part of the 1980s, 1981, I believe, and the series was first published in 2011. It's under the name James Henry, which is the pen name of James Gerbert, I believe, and I've heard good things about them. Personally, I haven't read them and I don't plan on to, really. I've read other books that have been, modern day authors taking authors that have sadly passed away but have famous characters. For example, Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot has been adapted by Sophie Hannah. I've read a couple. They're not as good. I don't enjoy them as much, and I'm a huge rereader. I love rereading books, so my journey with these Frost books now is just going to be to reread them because they're wonderful, so I can just enjoy them as they are. Now, my plan that I'm going to share with you today is I want to give a little talk about where I started with these books, why you should read them, and then finally where to start and favourites. So, I first came to these Frost books years ago. So I used to watch, well I still watch, Only Fools and Horses, Open All Hours, old-fashioned British comedies. Now those two of course star David Jason. I used to love watching them as a child. They used to be on like Saturday nights, they're not anymore. TV's changed now, but I used to love watching them. And then one day my mum was watching A Touch of Frost and it was David Jason, of course, who plays Frost. And I was like, oh, it's Granville, it's Del Boy. And I watched it, and then before I knew it, I'd watched all of the episodes so many times. I'd cried at a few of them, particularly the last one. Anyone else cried at that one? So much. Anyway, so yeah, I watched them all, really enjoyed them, thought they were wonderful. And I knew there were books because on the credits it does come up, created by R.D. Wingfield, or characters created by R.D. Wingfield, something like that. So I knew there were books, and I looked into it, realised there was a series of books, and then a couple of years ago, so I left it quite late, this had been like 10 years that I'd been watching the series for, something like that. I went on holiday with my boyfriend and Pup. It was our first holiday with Pup. We went to Wales and he loved it. And we came back through Hay on Wye. Hay on Wye I've been to before and I loved it. It was brilliant. And if you've never been, you should go. It's a little town which is just bookshops. And one of those is a bookshop that specialises in classic crime. And I picked up this one, which is the first one, Frost at Christmas, and I took it home with me. And when I read it for the first time, I realised that's it, I'm hooked, because it was great, and that's how my journey with Frost began. So, why should you pick up these books? Why? I'm someone who reads a lot of classic books, and these are quite modern. I mean, the last one, as I said, was published in 2008, so, very modern for me. But I've given you 5 reasons to pick up these books. I do have to say there is a downside to these books, in the fact that there is occasionally racist, sexist, and derogatory language that is used that does make you feel uncomfortable when you read it. I don't know why it's there. I don't know if it's true to like old-fashioned policing, because Frost is meant to be quite an old-fashioned style policeman. I don't know. It does make you feel a bit uncomfortable when you read them, but that is the downside to this book. But I have to say, for me, that is the only downside. But anyway, let's focus on the positives because there are 5 I want to share with you. So, first of all, feeling real. These books feel very real. I've never worked for the police service, so I don't know. But these books, there's always something going on. They're always very busy. There's always so many amounts of cases going on all at once. It's not just they're focusing on this one crime and that's it. They get to sit around and have a cup of tea. They're always thinking of crime figures and the statistics, where they are in a table in with other divisions, about manpower, about money for putting on different searches for people and things like that. And it feels a real situation rather than just a fictionalized version. Number 4, plots. There's various plots in these books, and actually you'll pick up a book and there'll probably be a good 4 or 5 plots in just one book. I mean, if you've watched the TV series, all of them bar from the last one have been adapted, and you'll find that you'll read one of these books but actually it covers like 2 TV shows, because the TV shows usually cover about 2 plot lines, whereas this has got a good 4 in them. But the plots are all great. I mean, you get some real petty stuff as a plot line, which is fun to read, but then you'll also get some plot lines and it's some really disturbing stuff, and kind of getting under your fingernail stuff, and that's also a really interesting read too. Number 3, humour. I love the humour in these books. The way that they are written kind of gives this lightness to the darkness of the subject, and having a character like Frost that is humorous to bounce off the writing style just works perfectly. And number 2, pace. The pace of these books is mad. You are reading on the go all the time. It's like boom, 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 boom. I can read one of these books in 2 sittings. I mean, I can probably read that in 1 and probably the next one in 1, but the kind of later ones that, as you can see, are quite big. I mean, I read this is nearly 600 pages and I read it in 2 days, 2 sittings that is, and I just whizzed through it. I just absolutely adore them. They're the pace so that you literally can't put them down, because if you put them down you feel like you're missing out, and you need to know what's happening next. You need to think, oh well, what's he going to do now, and how's he going to do this and that and the other, and you're on the road with Frost like the fly on the wall, and you're at his pace, which is very, very fast indeed. And then finally, the number 1 reason to pick up these books is for the character of Frost himself. Frost is a really interesting detective. He's a detective inspector of Denton Police. He has a George Cross medal. So you think, oh yeah, very good. But he is the most lazy, scruffy detective that you will ever meet. He doesn't abide by the rules one bit. He doesn't care an awful lot about things that he probably should care about in his rank, about reports and the paperwork, crime statistic, petrol receipts, overtime receipts. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't care about promotion. He doesn't want a promotion. All he cares about is getting the job done. And it's his character which is really funny and sarcastic, and just, you know, he turns up at people's house and they're like, he's not the chief in this, is he? And they're like, yep, he is, like, he's the top dog that's going to run this investigation. He's like, ugh. Brilliant. It's so funny. But then there's other characters that he works with, and then he bounces off the Mullet, who is his boss, Frost's boss, that is. And Mullet is someone who's very neat, and Frost really gets on his nerves, and he would like to get rid of Frost, ideally. And Mullet is under pressure because he's, of course, top dog, and he's got to answer to people even higher than him. But Mullet and Frost have this really humorous relationship, because you kind of love to hate Mullet, but you kind of like him as well in a way. And it's just a wonderful relationship. So yeah, hopefully I have intrigued you to go and pick up these books. Pick them up for the character of Frost alone, because you won't meet another detective like him in literature. Trust me, He's brilliant. Now, where do you start? Well, actually, this is going to be a bit weird, but I'd actually say start with the first two. Now, if you don't like this series after reading the first two, then fair enough, perhaps it's not for you. But read this one first. This is Frost at Christmas by R.D. Wingfield, the first one. Now, I say read this one first because I do think it's a good introduction to Frost, but I don't think we quite get the true Frost in here. The Frost that appears in all the rest of the books kind of starts from this one, which is A Touch of Frost, which is, of course, where they got the name for the TV show. The humorous sort of sarky side of Frost I felt really came out in this one. He's kind of lacking in this one a little bit, but this is still really good. It's just he seems to be a bit more of a defined character from this one then onwards. So read this one, if you think it's all right, but you're still not sure, then pick up that one, and then I think you'll be hooked. To be honest. So yeah, that's where to start. As for favourites, now all of these books have got a minimum of 4 stars to them. Minimum, so they're all really good. There isn't any weak link, shall we say, but I wanted to let this kind of series settle with me a little bit, and see how I feel coming away from it for a little while as to which ones are my favourites. And there's a couple that are really stuck to me like glue, and the first one is A Touch of Frost. This has to be a favourite that I've bumped up to 5 stars because it's funny. In a weird way, it's funny, and I really liked Frost on this. This is, I mean, it's not great, but the subject matter obviously isn't great because you can probably see what's going on here. That is a body, but it is wonderful. It's so good, so good. I don't want to give it the plots away of any of these because I'll spoil it for you. But the other one that I'm bumping up to 5 stars is Winter Frost. This one packed an absolute punch. So this one I gave 4.5 stars to originally, but it wouldn't come out my head. So in this one there's someone in it and he's like, they did it, I won't say what it is, but they did it, and there's no evidence to tie that person to the crime until the very last page, and the last like handful of lines clinches it. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It keeps you going all the way through and it's just wonderful. So yes, those two are my favourites, but all the rest are a minimum of 4 star or 4.5. So yeah, they're all wonderful. So hopefully I have enticed you to go and pick up the Frost series. There's only 6 books, so it won't take you too long to complete the series anyway, because they're all absolutely wonderful, and you'll just speed through them like I did if you are anything like me anyway. So that is it. I will leave a link in the description bar for the first book, which is Frost at Christmas, and the second one, A Touch of Frost, for you to go in and get your hands on. You might have noticed I've got some with different editions. I've got some of these editions and some of those editions, so I think I'm going to go and change all my editions to these newer ones now for my next reread. So that is it. I hope you have enjoyed this video. In the comment section, please chat to me all things Frost. Have you read any of these books? If so, what do you think of them? Do you like them as much as I do? If you haven't, are you intrigued? Perhaps going to add them to your wish list or pick them up? Or if you haven't done any of that and you don't want to do any of that, have you watched the TV show starring David Jason? I would love to know. So anyway, that is it for this video. Take care, and I shall see you soon for the next one. Bye for now.